Welcome to Marvel Vision, a podcast about Marvel, the MCU, and WandaVision. We're going to be talking about WandaVision Episode 6, all new Halloween Spooktacular.
Oh, fun titles.
Fun title. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete. Happy Halloween, motherfuckers.
Happy Halloweeny.
So, as mentioned, we're going to be talking about Episode 6. Usual spoiler warning here. We're probably going to jump pretty much right into it. So, go watch the episode. Come back here. We're going to be talking about highlights. We're going to be talking about Easter eggs. We're going to be talking about theories, lowlights, absolutely all that stuff. But first off, we've been waking up pretty early to do this. I've been really appreciating this Wake and Wanda. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Don't.
Oh, another day, Wake and Wanda, man. I love it. Kicking off the weekend.
So hardcore, man. I'd
It
get
is
up
hardcore.
early. Wanda.
Now, Pete, it seems like, I don't know if you want to talk about this here, but it seems like you were very emotionally affected by this episode.
Well, it's just
WandaVision.
crazy. This kind of idea of living in a bubble, and when you go outside of the bubble, all this crazy stuff can happen is just, with everything that is happening right now, it's just kind of weird how some friends seem to be, like bubble affected, others acting like there isn't a bubble.
I shit. Is this a Pete? Are you having a Pete vision?
Yeah, it's just kind of, the show is very crazy right now.
Because I feel a little bit like Quicksilver.
Yeah, you do?
Yeah, definitely have the hair.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I would say you're the fastest of the group. You know what I mean? You're a quick guy.
I
won't
can't believe
shut
that.
the fuck up.
I can't believe that landed in a compliment. Oh, there it is. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I guess
Pete.
Alex is the Agnes.
Ooh. Was that good?
It's
It
pretty
was
good, actually.
It
Yeah.
was too good to have just done it randomly.
I've been practicing for weeks at this point, 6 weeks. So, broad strokes about the episode. As you can tell from the title, this is the Halloween episode. It is set in the 2000s. We were
Did not see that coming.
Well, we were a little off in our guesses in terms of what this was, because at least for the opening, very specifically Malcolm in the Middle.
100%. And I was not ready for that. I guess what it was is last episode we did the Full House and Family Ties. There was a double sort of and this just jumped forward past where we thought. And Malcolm in the Middle, wow, strong choice.
Strong choice down to Billy and Teddy doing the narration directly to Cabro, which I thought was super fun.
Billy and
Also, Tommy, I keep doing that in my head.
Names are hard, and I guess you're just not a comic fan like the rest of us.
Oh, I'm sorry that I keep mistaking two members of the Young Avengers who have very similar names.
Don't try to flex with more knowledge to make up for your mistake. It doesn't work that way.
Fair enough.
I'm having fun. This is great.
It's Alex, I didn't mean to do that. It's the Pete vision. He made me do it. He made me do it. I would never correct you like that.
Pete. It's all Pete.
Yeah.
So Billy and Tommy doing the narration directly to the camera.
Can you fucking move that wire that's right in the middle of your fucking shot? It's driving me nuts.
Who are you talking to?
You, man. The wire that's right running down the front of your fucking camera. It's driving me insane.
The wire?
Yeah. There's a right
this is
there.
Great for our audio podcast.
Yeah.
This thing over there?
Yeah.
That's
what
a
is
beam of gorgeous light that is lighting me up, Pete.
Jesus Christ.
This is
I cannot bend light the way that you can.
we can't do this early in the morning because nothing makes sense.
Lots going on this episode. Just a broad strokes is what's going on. Pietro is here now. It is Evan Peters from the X-Men series, so a lot of mystery that we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a moment. He seems to know what's going on in Westview. He is talking to Wanda about that throughout the episode, but he's also acting as the cool brother-in-law, uncle dude hanging out with the kids. Kids start to develop their powers. Vision tries to make his way outside of Westview. It goes very poorly. And as a result, Wanda expands the hex, capturing Darcy, as well as most of the members of SWORD. Hayward makes it out with two people, probably, though we don't 100% know. Jimmy Woo and Monica Rambeau managed to make it out. They've had a break with SWORD this episode after they're kicked out.
We're on a break. We're on a break.
We're going to meet Monica's contact outside of Westview, so we'll probably pick up on that and I'm sure have some theories there. So outside of Westview, things getting real bad. Inside of Westview, things getting even worse.
Yes.
And it's still up in the air exactly who is behind this, who is controlling this. who is in charge, what is causing this as we go through the episode.
We're going to speculate. Yeah, this episode was interesting. It started to, the format starting to really fall apart. The way this episode ended, I was like, oh, that's not an ending place.
Yeah, it was a very interesting ending where I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, is there something past the credits or something? Because it feels like there should be a button of some kind.
I always watch all the credits, including the Dutch ones, because maybe that's where it's buried.
Oh, nice.
You got to read all of them. That's the important part.
I've learned so many languages
somewhere in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with you, but we've kind of talked about the structure of the season, and we're not going to fully know how it lands, obviously, until the final episode. But I do feel like here we're kind of getting the end of the second act of the series, but also we're just kicking into high gear into the MCU movie. To my mind, it feels like this episode, the last 3 episodes, that's the MCU movie. The rest of it, this is no slagging off at all, but the rest of it was set up. That was setting up the house of cards so that everything could start tumbling down this episode. And I think that's what we're going to see happening.
Yeah, and it is interesting. We talked about how the different eras of television sort of bend toward more realistic storytelling. And then we did what we didn't say, and it makes total sense to make the jump into full movie storytelling, I think is, to your point, what's happening here. But it's not TV. It's fully...
it's HBO.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. How dare you? You're about to get hexed in a major way from the Disney Corporation. But it does, it makes for a whole other way of telling the story. Like we're just going to get little chunks of movie, basically, I think, going forward.
Yay, movie chunks.
Yeah. So what jumped out with you from the episode? What was something that you thought was particularly interesting, or
well, I really,
or plot wise? Pete, what cars did you like?
I really identified with the crying lady who was like putting up, just kind of like frozen in like a one move thing where she was trying to put up Halloween decorations.
You identified with her? And
yeah, I feel like because we're all like, time is weird right now, so it's like,
are you okay?
Yeah,
Christmas, you know what I mean? Like we're all in this loop that we can't stop, and it's just so weird. And you know, what are days anymore? I mean, it's I really identified with her in her single tear.
Wow, that's I mean, that was sort of the most haunting moment of the episode. I think they did a good job of making it actually scary. I don't think this is a purposeful connection, but it felt very Stranger Things to me in sections here, because it was just like the Halloween connection and the way that they just went from very normal feeling and looking things into a very unsettling imagery by just freezing people. Unfreezing.
Yeah, that was really just seeing people kind of frozen. That was very unsettling.
And I like how it hasn't exactly been a slow progression, but the progression through the episodes where they've let things fall apart, where we started to get hints that things weren't right. The reality was breaking down in little bits for the first couple of episodes. And then it felt like the lid got popped off there in that last episode, where it's with that moment where Agnes says, hey, do you want me to take it again? Where now we know there are people who are aware, they know they're in a sitcom. We get that from whatever's going on with Pietro this episode. We get it from Agnes. We also get it from Hugh. I believe that's the name of the character, which I thought was interesting. We got a little bit of that when he was trimming the hedges a couple of episodes back, but he seems to be on maybe the same kind of level of awareness as Agnes in terms of the sitcom world. But also, like you're saying, with Vision walking out of Westview, seeing outside of wherever Wanda is, things are frozen and people are just trapped. And that's it. And that's terrifying.
And while we're talking about this, maybe it makes sense to talk about the commercial, the sort of Go-Gurt commercial, because that was ominous as well, where you have some claymation characters. He's just hungry, the kid on the island, and he gets a Yo Magic yogurt thing, and just we watch him slowly die.
Do you know how hard it is to kind of peel off those things, you know, especially when you're on a deserted island?
Exactly. I was like, if there's a character Pete's gonna identify with, it's the kid who can't open the yogurt.
Oh my god, yeah. I feel like I'm that kid waiting for Black Widow to come out, you know what I mean? Like it's just, you know, I'm gonna slowly turn into a skeleton.
And Pete, I'll be down to your apartment to open your yogurts. I'll just leave them outside on your front door.
Well, make sure you open them and then leave them.
That's what I said.
Okay, Jesus Christ, you know, that would be all right.
Kids in the neighborhood walking by. Oh, there's the guy with a bunch of open yogurts at the doorstep.
What's your
Crazy
main
old Pete?
What's your main form of income? I open a friend of mine's yogurts and leave them on his welcome mat.
You know,
So
it'd
you
be a
could
fun
just say
surprise,
yogurt
Justin, just to wrap it all together. Fill one of those yogurt with a bunch of actual Black Widows. So people be like,
come
fun.
on.
It's
There
a
they are.
tie-in. It's a product tie-in.
I won't put that together.
What do we think was going on there? Because I feel like a lot of the other commercials, if we're right, and this is, I think, the popular internet theory is we're sort of progressing through Wanda's history with all of these commercials, all the traumatic events she's dealt with. What are you doing? What is this?
What? There's just
The
beam
light.
of light streaking down your thing, and it is. I don't know what to do with it, and it's just.
I will say, Alex, did
go like
you
this.
shoot a gun into the sky recently?
Yeah.
It looks like a
Did
bullet.
you Yosemite Sam it? And just like happy to have WandaVision this morning, like
I was just so excited about this episode of WandaVision. I was like, oh, darn it, them rabbits.
Yeah.
Dude, when you were looking for places to live, you were like, do you have a single beam of light that will come down into my basement?
I'm sorry. When you look for an apartment, you ask about the breathing holes, right? That's important.
I'm suffocating
Smart.
here.
I'm
How
gonna
am I
now.
supposed to get air if there are no holes in my apartment?
That's great. Well, if we can move past the shaft of light, I imagine it's shining. It's shining down on like a button that says like upload or something like, or like, or download.
Can we get back to Yo Magic? What's
Yeah.
going on there?
So I don't know. This one sort of confused me a little bit because I didn't know if it was a way of showing that that the townspeople are slowly dying because they're not eating because the magic is killing them.
Oh wow.
Which I thought was interesting and sort of ties into the Vision being like you have to help these people when he gets past the bubble. And maybe that's where we'll turn and the Scarlet Witch will be like, I have to stop doing this. I'm killing this town of people. Either that or maybe the magic is killing the Scarlet Witch. And that's maybe about a reference to her past or something. And we're going to find out that it's related to her powering up in this show.
It was just weird how the shark was like, I remember hunger. Like he's always full. Like what is that about? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Whatever is going on there, I thought it was great to get a claymation episode. I thought that was a claymation commercial. I thought that was really a fun thing.
Do you think it's a tease for full claymation episode?
Oh, that would be great.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, if we're moving from the 2000s to the 2010s, as we all know, the majority of sitcoms in the 2010s were claymation, and that was the popular form.
That's true. Really, it started with the California Raisins. If you don't know what that is, I guess Google it or don't. Just guess.
Don't
or guess what it is. Don't Google
and then it actually also ended with the California Raisins.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's a little sitcom history for you all.
Do you think that they are going to push into 2010 sitcoms, or are we done with it?
I think next episode is going to be the Office style episode, right? With confessionals and things. We've seen there's been footage in the trailers of Wanda talking directly to camera. So I do think we're going to get that, but that's going to be kind of the final iteration of sitcom.
You mean we're going to skip past Friends? Like no central perk, nothing?
Well, and let me just
what
say
is different about Friends than any of, I don't know.
Wow, what an indictment of Friends from Alex.
I watched the first
That guy hates Friends.
You didn't watch all of Friends? Wow. Maybe I
Did you even get Justin's reference?
Who you are?
Could it be any more obvious?
Oh wow! How did you do that? How did you do that? You've never even seen the show.
He gets it.
Listen, I've watched 2 shows: Friends, just the first season, and California Raisins. That's it.
Wow!
But I think I get a sense of what's going on here.
Yeah, you understand television. Let me ask you this: are we going to get a Two Broke Girls reference?
Oh,
that. I know we were a little off on the end of the episode towards the beginning of this podcast here, but I love the ending here. I thought Wanda expanding the hex really amped up the danger. I thought seeing everybody turn into a carnival, that's something that we haven't seen on the show yet. What happens when the hex wall comes over people? I thought that sequence was awesomely done, and having everybody switch over to just doing the miming and everything was great. And getting to see Pete. I feel like you asked for this last episode. You were bummed that we weren't going to see Kat Dennings in sitcom land. It was a very obvious way to set it up there by having her handcuffed to the truck and left and everything. But it's still fun. It's a good setup, and getting her thrown in there is
the
delightful.
I'm
excited
to
see what
moment
happens
was
with that.
hysterical.
It
When
can-
she goes, oh, and then goes fudge, because she was that was really fun.
Kat Dennings, I feel like for whatever it is, she exists sort of outside of all realms because she had to do some she had to do some hacking lines. She was doing a lot of talking to herself, like, I got you now, Hayward. And stuff like that, very like melodramatic stuff that usually you're like, this is lame. But for whatever reason, her line delivery like somehow works.
It really does. It's great. It's also very funny because she was on Kimmel talking about like how like she didn't even know about that brother reveal until the last second. Like they had him covered in shroud and then moved down to set. So like
a shroud.
Yeah.
Oh
so
my
like
gosh.
very interesting how we're in the dark. The actors are in the dark till the last second. It's
Pete,
scary.
this is speaking of unscary and unsettled. Did you do some sort of research for this podcast? Because you watched another thing about it and like provided that information for the rest of us to know something.
Yeah, things are weird, man. This is a new world.
A couple of other things outside of the hex, just to wrap up that area before we move back inside, because there's lots of comic book stuff we can talk through there that we've already touched on. But we don't find out who Monica's contact is. But I do feel more confident after this episode that we're actually going to see whoever it is. So any further feelings on that? I feel like the Reed Richards thing has definitely gained speed on the internet, but I don't know how likely that necessarily is.
No,
I mean, because
go ahead.
If for Reed, you could just like show a bendy arm, you know what I mean? Like
just an arm
holding a cell phone, be like, hey, don't worry, I'll be right here. You know? Yeah. Real easy to do.
No, I don't think it can be a heavy hitter. We are going to get a new heavy hitter. I think it's going to be a callback to somebody else. And I think it is going to be like, I don't know which one, but it's an MCU, a character from the MCU that we've already met is what I think. And it's going to be someone that helps her out in some way, but doesn't go fight with her.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a quick show up. I felt a little more confident this episode on it being Talos, Ben Mendelsohn's character from Captain Marvel, because they keep dropping Captain Marvel references.
They do.
They sure do.
Could be a aerospace engineer, and she had a good relationship with him as a child in Captain Marvel in the movie.
That douchey guy was like, "Hey Rambo, I've seen Captain Marvel."
He meant the movie.
They have. Well, that's the thing. If you're in the MCU world, you got to go see all the movies so you know what everybody's talking about
in the theater opening weekend. So
yes,
and you have to buy the big popcorn if you're live in the MCU.
And now it's even worse on the MCU. In the MCU world, they got to wake up at 3 a.m. and watch their own show. Otherwise, they're going to be spoiled on Twitter later on that day.
Oh, no one would do that.
Really,
that's crazy. But what was I going to say?
Something about water balloons?
Yeah, I was gonna I gotta get my water balloons filled with shaving cream going right now.
Yeah, you gotta be ready for Halloween, man.
You don't think it's gonna be actual Captain Marvel? You think Talos is a more?
Yeah, I still think it feels like Monica has something weird about Captain Marvel. There's another mention there. There's that showdown with Hayward that she has right before they're kicked out of S.W.O.R.D., where Hayward just drops, "I'm glad your mother died," or whatever that line is.
Yeah, yo, that was messed up.
How did
nobody punch him?
I'm glad you weren't here.
Room full of people, nobody punches him in the face for saying that?
Yeah. But he mentions Captain Marvel and they cut to Monica and there's a little micro expression that she has. Yeah. So again, I think there's some bad blood there or something like that, and we don't know exactly what it is yet. A couple of other quick little things to throw out. Cataract. So when Darcy is searching, she finds the secret file. It's called Cataract. She sends it to Jimmy Woo. I did a big search while she's putting in the emails. You see James D. Gold, James J. Alexander, and James X. Sackler -ND show up when she's searching for Jimmy Woo's email address. Well, hold on. Let me actually finish this thought. When she's searching for Jimmy Woo's address, she sends him the file on Cataract. So presumably next episode, since they're outside the hex, probably they're going to get that. James J. Alexander is a VFX producer for Marvel, so I think that's the only real Easter egg there. But what do you think Cataract is? What's going on?
Well, I think this is a smart way to have shows talk about cataracts because it affects so many people. And if we're not talking about it, you might have the symptoms and not even realize it. So I like this, like a nod to the old G.I. Joe, like, kind of like a lesson at the end of the episode.
PSA.
Yeah.
Definitely
I think it was seamlessly introduced. And I think it's important to kind of make sure people are aware.
Well, let me throw this out to you. Cataract, obviously, an eye, something that afflicts your eye. In the flashback to Sokovia, Quicksilver had an eye patch at the beginning of the episode. I feel like Quicksilver, we'll talk about this in a little bit, I feel like Quicksilver is maybe the villain, sort of in disguise as her brother. Is there a one-eyed villain that is somehow maybe at play here?
Can I throw something else out at you with that flashback? So first of all, love that. Just classic sitcom flashback. Really well done. I do think they were dressed up as Black Widow and Nick Fury. I think that's what was going on.
That's
there.
What I thought. Yeah.
So I think that's what was going on. She had like even antenna as some sort of weird bug thing, and she had the Natasha hair. So I think that's what was going on there. I think if anything, the eye can refer to the fact that every single credits sequence so far has zoomed into Vision's eye. We've had that. Like that is a repeated riff right at the end of the episode. In the credits, we go directly into a shot of Vision from the episode into his eye. Clearly, Hayward is very interested in Vision. He's tracking him inside of the hex. He seemed to be potentially experimenting on his body back at Sword. So if anything, I think Cataract probably has something to do with Vision.
Yeah.
Not necessarily anything else. I
want to talk about in that flashback, that lady was giving away full-size fish, not the small fish. That was full-size fish she was giving away. I mean, that's a great house to go.
I always hated going trick-or-treating and just getting a bunch of minnows. You always got to go to the house with the big fish, the full fish.
I'll tell you what, one of the weirdest Halloween experiences I ever had with my kids was we went to a house that was giving away celery and they loved it. They kept asking for celery for like weeks afterwards. It was the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me.
That's real?
This is a 100% real story.
Why would you eat celery from a stranger's house, man? That seems so creepy.
I don't know.
Just
it wasn't this past Halloween.
Oh, that's fine.
We just went around in COVID times. They were like, give us celery.
Yeah. I think you're the one that's having a psychotic break, not Pete. Were they handy just
Waking Wanda, man. Waking Wanda.
Naked stalks of celery?
Yeah, that was it.
No peanut butter.
No
ants
peanut butter.
On a log,
no ants on a log. Nothing.
Not prepackaged.
And your kids liked it?
No, it wasn't prepackaged celery. What are you talking about?
Like what the ones that go in the Bloody Mary?
Oh, like the single serve you pick up at a deli. You're like, hey, give me a pack of smokes and one of them single serve celeries, please.
Yeah, like the product I started, which is like Go-Gurt, but for celery. It's called Speedlery.
I can't believe your kids liked it.
Pete, you always have that problem with opening up the celery package, right? So you gotta love
so
that.
hard. It's so hard.
We get inside of the hex because there's so much stuff to talk about. And
just real quick, I have to make a note to myself too when I open Pete's yogurts to make sure I pre-open the celery and slice it up so that he can eat it. Yeah.
Celery dippers.
Celery and yogurt.
Who's excited about celery? What is wrong with your children? What are you doing to your kids where they're excited about celery?
I mean, they don't have breathing holes in their rooms.
Yeah. They've never tasted anything quite so interesting as one stalk of celery.
Lots of stuff going on here. Love the dynamic with the whole family. I thought this was super fun. Also, as we talked about in the last episode, people aren't being very secret with their powers anymore. Like, if you're going to talk about like the lid popping off, Speed, Wiccan, for those who don't know, for those who are new to the comics, Billy and Tommy are Wiccan and Speed.
Don't flex because you remembered it right.
No, I have it written down here so I actually don't forget.
No, when you advance into older age, remembering anything is a flex.
Here's the problem. In the comics, there's Tommy and there's Teddy, and Teddy and Billy are boyfriends, and I constantly confuse the names Teddy and Tommy, and I'm sorry. They have the same first letter, the same last letter, the same number of letters. Also, I'm old.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like a whole lot of excuses. You know what I mean?
Yes. So in the comics, there are two parts of the Young Avengers. We talked about this a little bit last week as well. As we saw on the show, Tommy gets his speed powers. They're very like Quicksilver. He can move fast. He also has a very similar costume, though not exactly the same costume as Quicksilver. And Billy has kind of undefined powers. In the comics, he basically has to repeat things a bunch of times, and he can warp reality like how Wanda can do in the comics. We get things that I think are a little more in line with her MCU nature here, where he has seemingly a little bit of telepathy. He could definitely move things. We see blue come out of his hands instead of red, like his mom. But I like this. I'm excited that they're pulling off their powers already.
Yeah, it's exciting because this is a thing for sure now. Like eventually we're going to get, like we talked about this, I think we're going to get the Young Avengers. Maybe that's, I don't know what capacity they will be in.
I'm really worried about if they leave the bubble, if the kids can leave, and if they do leave, like what that does to them. Because in this episode, they're talking about how people's cell structure changes if you go in and out.
Yes,
but if you're born in there, like what does that mean for you?
I do
trying to
think
get
there's
into
something
the
to be
world?
said for the fact that they seem to be aware and able to control the narrative in a very similar way to how Wanda is. I think that's the purpose of them doing the direct to camera throughout this episode. It's not just the sitcom trope. It's also the fact that like we see, Billy can see outside the dome. He sees what's going on with Vision, dome, Hex. He sees what's going on with Vision. He understands there. So yeah, I think that's the question. I think they need to get to a certain age where they can venture outside the hex, because that's kind of probably the whole point of this, as they told us from the very beginning.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah.
I remember in the beginning of the show where they said, listen, the whole point of this thing is we've got to age up some kids so they'll be okay to live outside of this bubble.
For the children, for the children, for the children. It's all for the children. They told us that in the third episode, where they also said, you got to tell people what the magic trick is.
Now, in light of it, because we speculated that Agnes was the one driving a lot of this, taking care of the kids stuff. And then in this episode, we see Agnes, and she is fully under the hex. She, Vision breaks her out of it briefly, and she's acting like just another scared person. Do you think, my theory is that she was doing that to try to push Vision even harder? So that was a little bit of play acting there.
I'm back on the Agnes beat as of this episode, because versus the creepy lady that Pete called out earlier, everybody else seems to be frozen in a very specific way where they really cannot move. The lady is crying and she's not moving. But when we cut in on Agnes in the car, it's such a little thing, but she's breathing.
And we saw that there was a little movement that I thought was like, that's a purposeful thing.
So whatever she is doing, she's dressed as a witch, which just doubles down on the idea that she is Agatha Harkness in some form from the comics and is a witch. Certainly that might tie into the Yo magic thing in some way, potentially, because Scarlet Witch's powers aren't exactly magic. They're science-based.
Well, I think, wait, back up for a second. First of all, yogurt is magic. So, I mean, like, that's what that is.
How do they even make it? Nobody knows.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like milk, but hard.
Yeah.
You know? And not too hard, but like harder.
If you translate yogurt from the native Sokovian, it means hard milk.
Whoa.
So yes, I agree with you, Justin. I think Agnes was pushing Vision in some way. I think she was aware the entire time, even when he did the Mind Stone touch on her head. What her purpose is, what she's trying to do, I'm not 100% sure, but it might just be what happens at the end of the episode, set up a situation where the hex gets expanded.
Well, and it feels like she's been pushing Scarlet Witch to to sort of break through whatever this is. So I think she's seeking some sort of end to the hex, and maybe that's to then take control of the children. But is she doing it for the children because does she care about them, or is she trying to use them as a weapon? I guess it goes to like, is she a good guy or a bad guy at the end of the day?
I don't know. I wonder, because this show has, this is complete raw speculation that I'm just thinking about right now, but given that the show is really doubling down on trauma, and that is the whole point here, that Wanda dealt with the death of Vision, and many other people throughout her life, that we're getting that from Monica, who very explicitly says, I know what Wanda went through, and is relating back there. It certainly seems like I think we talked about this the last episode, that Agnes went through some trauma herself. There's the moment when Billy and Tommy, looking at my notes here, say, why don't you just bring Sparky back to life? And Agnes starts crying and says, you can do that. I wonder if her kids died. Like, I wonder if there was some sort of deal of she is manipulating Wanda, saying, I could bring Vision back, and in return, I get these kids. Whether Wanda knows that or not, whether she said that out loud, she's trying to make new children for herself.
That's interesting. That sort of goes to Pietro mentions the kids when he's talking to Wanda late in the episode, like, where'd all these kids come from? These kids. So
yeah. So, well, first off, I want to say, like, I understand what you're saying about Agnes, but she was kind of stuck on the edge of town, so maybe she was trying to kind of like drive out, like the doctor was before. And then they both, when they got to the edge of town, kind of had this thing of like, nobody escapes. So I kind of feel like she was trying to escape a little bit. Or, those drives you take where you just kind of stop at a stop sign or a stoplight and you just start crying and you just kind of question your life and what's going on and what are we all doing here? And are we in some like fish tank of life? But I think that when the kids thing is like, because all of a sudden kids appeared in this episode, and the kind of like Quicksilver sit down with Wanda where he's like, hey, I'm fuzzy on the details, but like, what's going on, right? And how did this all start? And she's like, I'm not sure. Yeah, it goes back and forth because Quicksilver seems like he's the fun Quicksilver we know, but then when we see him with the bullet holes and stuff, it's like it really just
it's less fun.
Yeah, it's very less fun, and it's also like, wait, which is this actually the Quicksilver?
This also might just be Evan Peters acting, but there's much more of an edge to him than Aaron Taylor Johnson had in his performance. It feels like there's something more going on there. I'm still not convinced this is Pietro from another universe or anything like that. I don't know. They seem to strongly imply this episode that this is Pietro's reanimated body, but similar to how there's that weird moment where Vision doesn't know that he was Avenger, and there seems to be gaps in his memory, and he died, same as there's gaps and things that are different and changed in Pietro's memory. So I guess what I'm saying is I think it could go either way at this point. It could, I guess, be Pietro from another universe, though I'm not convinced. It also could be something that was created out of thin air in a way, similar to how Vision's body was reconstituted, but maybe his mind wasn't exactly. I'm not 100% sure, but
these are all great points. Do you remember when Pete said he just goes for drives and cries at some point?
I'll tell you what, I don't know about you, but my mind immediately went to him sitting there listening to Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo, yogurt just poured down the front of his shirt, his trunk full of celery, just stocked.
Imagine if someone, a friend of yours, was like, "Oh, look at all this celery I bought." You would be like, "This person's lost it," because you don't ever need more than one package of celery.
For any, if that,
it's always rotting in the bottom of my fridge.
How many chicken pot pies are you making?
I'm having one Bloody Mary, and the rest goes straight in the trash. On the Pietro tip, I feel like if there is a villain in this show, I think he is the villain who is dressing up like Pietro. And I think he's working with the Agnes character. Mm-hmm. Like, they got Agnes's job up until this episode was to be with Wanda and to sort of watch her, push her, mind the kids. And then I think her job, because Pietro was there doing that, Agnes then switches to pushing Vision further.
He also didn't answer the question. He just deflected it. She asked him a very specific question. He was like, "You're testing me," and didn't answer the question.
And she's clearly suspicious of him. Like, she's asking him questions. Yeah. So she knows, I think subconsciously, that this isn't Quicksilver, but it's playing on the same thing, the trauma and the nostalgia, quote unquote nostalgia factor this caused her to create this hex anyway. If in the beginning, like, she needs to see Vision, she wanted to have a family, she wants her brother to be there. So they're taking advantage of what they know about her to serve their ends, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think that seems fair. What other things? There's a bunch of different Easter eggs and little things that I wrote down, but were there any other big scenes you guys wanted to
Well,
talk about that jumped out at you?
it's just weird that in Sokovia, they said to their parents, "I want to dress up like Nick Fury and Black Widow." Parents had to be like, "Who and what?"
That's true.
That doesn't make sense with this timeline.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Her parents are very aware. Well, I one Halloween went as Lowell from the TV show Wings, so I can understand why like no one would know what that costume is.
How old were you? And what were your parents saying? Yeah.
They're like, this kid loves Wings. Great show.
So I'll just run through a couple of things that I wrote down. We mentioned this earlier, but Pietro gets the classic Quicksilver costume down to the hair, which I thought was super fun.
Very fun.
Really enjoyed that. Also, this was a weird thing, but just because I was like still framing things and trying to find Easter eggs, there's a brand in there. Maple Hill Milk is what they're using, which is actually a modern milk brand. So that was just a little anachronism thing. I don't think it was a clue. I was like, Maple Hill Marvel, what is this a reference to?
Wow. Way to keep your eye on the milks, or as we call it, soft milk, as opposed to yogurt, which is hard milk.
Thank you.
Another thing that was harder to catch in the opening credits, Vision is reading a newspaper, and on the back page, it looks like there's an ad that just says Westview. There's an alien spaceship, a classic flying saucer over there, and it seems to be like I don't know, tractor beaming a TV or something. It was a little hard to see, but that was a little bit of weirdness. I also, another thing that I don't think means much of anything, but Pietro has a tattoo that says mom on one shoulder.
I saw that.
Fun little, very meta reference. When they're at the town square Halloween Scarefest, Pietro says something to her. He runs away. He says kick ass, and she says kick ass, which is a reference to the fact that both Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson were in Kick-Ass together.
Oh,
so there you go. Cute little thing. Another thing on the marquee in the movie theater, the town is showing The Incredibles and The Parent Trap, both Disney movies, both from different time periods that don't necessarily match the 2000s.
No.
But, excuse me, both of them make a lot of sense. Parent Trap, twins, Incredibles, superpowered family. I think that was pretty much all that was going on there. And I think that was it. I wrote down the names of Ellis Avenue and Rolling Hill Drive, but I think those are just street names.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, what's that a clue for? Then I was like, oh, it's just what Wanda said one scene ago. Don't go past Ellis Ave.
Yeah. I do love that, though. I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, stop looking into Easter eggs, stop talking to theories. But I think that's fun to look at these things, figure them out. Some of them mean things, some of them don't. But that's a credit to the show for just packing everything so tightly in there, like celery in a trunk.
Exactly. Perfectly packed. The beauty of Easter eggs is sometimes they're about a deep reference to the original source material, and sometimes it's an Easter egg for the story itself, also known as a plot.
I did really like the line where she was like, "Hey, it's the guy who was almost killed by his own murder squad." I thought that was a really funny line.
Yeah, they're pretty nasty to Hayward in a way.
He deserves it, okay?
Of course, yes. But I'm saying then they fight their own soldiers. They're going to get in trouble.
Oh yeah. Man,
they got to follow the rules.
We didn't really talk about Monica's blood work. She's getting her photon powers, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess the question is she going to get the powers now, or does she have to go through the hex one more time for it to really seal the deal?
I think one more time, and my guess would be she's going to do it purposefully and maybe be aware. Like that's a great fight starter move to step through the portal and be like,
yeah,
that'll be fun.
What I'm worried about is next episode, there's going to be a lot of mimes. I don't want that. I don't want a mime episode.
Too many mimes.
Yeah.
If you got pushed into the hex, what do you think you'd become? Obviously, those soldiers all became clowns and mimes. A lot of the buildings became other buildings. Which,
right. The truck became a funnel cake truck.
Yeah,
Pete, do you think you would also become a funnel cake truck?
Well, hang on a second. What was nice was it went from like new cars to like old timey cool cars in the used car lot, which I was like, oh wait, let's just hold here and admire all these nice old cars here before we move on.
Yeah, everybody at Westview starts chanting, "For Pete, for Pete, for Pete, all for Pete."
More cars, more cars.
Before we start to wrap up here,
wait.
Okay, yes, go ahead, Pete. What is
The line where Pietro was like, "Hey, what are you worried about? It's not like he could get more dead." I was just like, "Oh, dude." Like, I know,
Well,
brothers and sisters fight and stuff, but that was below the belt for sure.
one of I have two quick thoughts there. One is I think that ties into what we're saying about Pietro, that there's an edge to him, that he is pushing in Wanda in some way. He's pushing the narratives in some way in a very aggressive nature and in a very negative nature. But the other thing is, this really reminded me how caustic a lot of sitcoms of that time were, which frankly I did not watch because I was like, oh, I don't like watching people be mean to each other. This is not fun.
They were mean.
That's why you only went one season in Friends, because it got real mean after
I was
that.
like, these people aren't friends. What's happening here?
They should be called enemies. In Malcolm in the Middle, they were so mean to Bryan Cranston that's why he became Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
There's a whole theory about that.
Yeah. But let's dip into speculation. If Quicksilver is the villain, what villain are we looking at here? Because he was being so, to what you're talking about, so blunt. He was like taking a hammer to Wanda to try to shatter her control of the hex, it felt like, by calling out how Vision is dead and all that. It was really ramped up in this episode. But he seems like a villain who is not smart, but doing a job.
It almost felt like a henchman rather than like a full-on villain,
Yeah, that's my take. I think there's been a lot of speculation about him being Mephisto, who's a devil-ish character
fucking say that
from the
name.
comic books. Hold on. This is an entirely different discussion, but I don't think they're going to go there. I don't think they're going to reveal some surprise villain. I believe we were actually talking about this in the Patreon Slack a little bit, patreon.com/comic book club. No, there's been a lot of good theories in the WandaVision room. It's been fun. But I think whoever the villain is, whatever they are, I feel like at this point it has to be something that was already introduced in the series or mentioned in the series. We've mentioned Hydra, we've mentioned Sword, we've mentioned Hayward, Agnes has been in the mix, now Pietro is in the mix, but I don't think suddenly Pietro is gonna be like, and I am Mephisto, because we haven't had any setup for that.
Because we had Sword and Skrulls together. Like, nobody's talking about Skrulls right now.
Nobody's talking about Skrulls right now.
Skrulls are like, why is nobody talking about us?
Well, I mean,
it
could be like
hold on. All I was going to say is I was going to agree with you, Pete, that I do feel like we've got Agnes. My card theory is Agnes at the top, Pietro, Hugh as her lieutenants, everybody else kind of trapped in this hex.
But that to me feels like they are some sort of henchman, like what's a supervillain group, or because to sort of against your point of introducing a new villain, I agree with you. They're not going to introduce like a big new villain, but they are going to have to explain who Agnes is at some point. And that's going to be someone is what we assume is Agatha Harkness. I feel like Pietro might be Grim Reaper.
Whoa.
Because it makes sense to introduce a low-level villain that they don't have to explain much about, that he's just some like bad villain who has a connection to Wanda.
Oh, that guy? It's just the Grim Reaper. No need to go into that more. Moving on.
Question.
No, I think you're right, Justin. I mean, I can see a scenario where they reveal he was the guy in witness protection. Yeah. His name is X. His alias was the Grim Reaper, and he gets brought back to life through this hex power or something. That
and he could be killed again without a lot of big ramifications. And that may be what, because I think Wanda will eventually become a hero of some sort. Well, either she'll become a hero and go back to some sort of status quo, or she will become the villain going forward into the
Do you think, I mean, just to throw it out, I think she could either die a hero or live long enough to see herself become a villain.
Boo.
That's something I just came up with.
Yeah, wow, that's really smart. I was raised in the dark.
I don't know why you would need to say that part.
Do you feel like you're in charge?
I think what she's going to do is she's going to have an army of mimes at her disposal, and things are going to get real weird.
God, army of mimes, you would never hear them coming.
Let's wrap this up by saying what is on our vision board for the next episode. Justin, why don't you go first? What's on your vision board?
For the next episode, we have to get a reveal in here. We have 3 episodes left. So I think we're going to get a big one in this next episode. Probably what Agnes and Pietro, if they are working together as some sort of team or villain group of villains, what they're up to, what their goals are, and who they are.
Yeah.
On my vision board, we've got to release the town people. Okay, the stuck people that are crying is too much to take. Okay, we've got to release the people. Okay, it's too much.
Great. My main thing, this is such a small thing and it's not really going to be that important, but I just want to find out who the aerospace engineer is next episode. I think that's a fun, easy mystery that they can solve. It'll be a fun reveal, whoever it is, whether it's somebody we already know or somebody new. And I'm excited to check that out.
I think it's Captain Marvel.
I think it's Captain Marvel.
It's Silver Surfer.
Yep. Definitely the Silver Surfer. Maybe Galactus, the Cloud from the first Fantastic Four.
He hates
or maybe it's Nick Nolte Cloud from the Ang Lee Hulk movie.
Oh, what if it's two clouds and the clouds don't like each other and they fight, they cloud fight?
Oh man,
that's my favorite thing.
Imagine two clouds fighting clouds. How would you know what was happening?
Yeah.
Wait, did you say clouds or clouds?
Clown clouds. What if clouds that look like clowns or clowns that look like clouds? Each one is equally scary.
Wow. If you'd like to support our podcast, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast on YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to talk to you about WandaVision. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe and listen to the show. Marvel Vision Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. comicbookclublive.com. This podcast and many more. Until next time, don't forget to wake Wanda.
Honestly, I think I'm the one who's losing it. I need to poke some air holes into my house.